Very good morning to you all. We'll start with gold because it's going very bonkers. Like Mr. Bosch has said, we've actually exceeded the weekly ATR by 150%. Right? So we've really exceeded the weekly ATR massively. So from a technical perspective, we've totally overdone it. Admittedly, we were a buy. And if we scroll out, we can see where it became a buy. Here, here we got the crossover, right? So we had the bull bear crossover, which is that tug of war analogy, which I'm going to make a video for. But basically, the bulls and the bears had a big battle, and the bears became more powerful than the bulls, and then the bears were dominant, and because the bears held on, what happened to price? And so that is absolutely ridiculous, actually, and that's just from the 50% crossover. And then we had confirmation on the SSI MA crossover there. So we had the a period of about 12 hours of sideways. Then we had the confirmation on the crossover with the MA, just about, and we had another one here. Each time they sold it really heavily here. Then they sold it again. And what's currently happening is that they're going long. We're making a risky sell because we've got the crossover. Okay, so we'll have a look at the SLCs on the Patreon video. But just be aware that we're making a crossover here, right? And we've really, really exceeded the ATR, which is bonkers. Let's look at S&P. Now I need to make a little apology for this because my terminal had some kind of latency issue, and it looked like there was a sudden move on the sentiment, but it wasn't. It was just data related. So it looked like it was a big knee-jerk reaction on the sentiment, but there wasn't. It was just normal. But we are seeing a reduction of those shorts as we come up. And now what we have right now, we've got a punishment zone because they've gone long or less shorts. Okay, so we can create a zone now, and this is going to be a resistance, so yeah, that's fine. I need to mark it round about here. So here, okay. So you can potentially, if you wanted to, you could sell it with a stop there. I would be really careful because you'd be fighting a beast. But do note that this is made a punishment zone, okay. And we might come up and test it. We might even rally more and then use it as a support. But currently, it's a resistance zone because of that crossover. Okay, so one here and one here. You can see the reaction from these zones. Okay, and we did make quite a few zones here, but we just chopped a crazy amount. So that's that. So do note that that's going to be important. And our risk calculation is possibly going to be risk off again tomorrow. And if we continue this way, by Friday or Monday, we'll be risk off at the big picture. So we've got to be really careful. US 30. And likewise, we can do a zone here. And these zones should be hopefully quite useful. So let's map this bit here. It's a thin one, I think. We can maybe make this one here. It's round about there, isn't it? Because it crosses over a period of a few hours, it's hard to map which one, but round about there, we can probably have it mapped across 2 hours. But you can see how we've got a zone now, and price went to test it and had a reaction on it. So there could be something in this zone analysis that we look at because it looks quite spooky, doesn't it? You can play around these technicals all day if you wanted to, but potentially we've got a diagonal break here with a zone. Potentially, it's not the greatest diagonal by any means, but a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 touches of it. So worth noting. And then lastly, DAX. Then we'll wrap up. I'm going to do a Patreon video, and then I need to start start doing my stuff. I've made a schedule which I need to keep, and today it begins, and I've got to do a lot of stuff that begins today. So It's a bit depressing, but I've got to do it. I've got to keep to schedule. If I'm going to be lazy, I'm going to be behind schedule, and that's not going to be any good at all for my stress levels. So there's a zone above, and maybe you could draw a diagonal. I don't know if it's going to help at all. Yeah, that's fine. I don't know. Oh, look, that's weird. Didn't want to do that, but um, ugh, I'm still not used to the tools on here. Well, this is weird, isn't it? I'm going to delete that. That's just crazy. Uh, yeah, so I'm going to wrap up now. I need to delete that line, but you get the idea. Perhaps you could say we had a diagonal break. Oh god, that's kind of annoying. And yeah, trend by anchor. I need to delete that. But maybe you could argue we've had a diagonal break potentially, and then we created a zone above. So I think we've got a trade of the day to buy the Kiwi CAD. If things start getting really ugly, it's probably going to propel that particular currency pair south, and we might get stopped out. So be really careful. It's a tight stop. It's like 10 pip stop. So it's not really going to be like a big issue. But do note that if this falls and the indices generally fall, which I said they would, then our trade of the day is probably not going to perform that well. But like I say, our risk is mitigated and managed because we've got our stop loss. And if you haven't got a stop loss, you're going to incur lots of destruction to your account. So this is going how you'd expect because of that zone. All right, so DAX has got a zone. US 30 has a zone, as you can see, and US 500 will have created a zone. Yeah, and we're seeing some reactions off that. It's fairly bearish because of this crossover. So I'll wrap up now, and I've got to crack on with things, unfortunately.